Does it?
No pressure, John.
Oh, grand. Oh, sorry, now is it? You'd like me to start? Begin? Yeah, now's the time. So I started Sky Blue Theatre in 2007. And from doing musicals at the Cambridge Corn Exchange, where we used to be based, we then moved to, it's the worst way of saying it, to other products. We started doing Shakespeare workshops in primary, secondary, and for sixth formers. And Shakespeare's always been my passion ever since leaving school and doing my first Shakespeare production. But my mother, who I started the company with, she was a playwright, and her main focus was starting the British Theatre Challenge, which has been running for eight years now, which is an international playwriting competition. The thing she was very much aware of, being a playwright herself, that if you're not an Alan Ayckbourn, if you're not known, it's difficult to get your work produced and performed, and quite often publishers won't even look at you unless your play's had a public performance. So she was very keen on the one of the prizes, rather than it being a financial prize, £5,000, that the prize was to get the play performed. Thus, the British Theatre Challenge was created, and since then I think, numbers aren't my speciality, but it's something like 70 odd plays have been performed, and of those, around 70 have had offers of publication. So it's something we're really happy with. Peter is one of our readers, actually, and has been and a shortlister of the challenge himself. And what I quite like about it, what I'm quite keen on, is it's open to any nationality, gender,
Any age limit as well.
There's no age limit. It's just open to anybody and everybody. And all of when we read the plays, they're all read blind. So with the name of the playwright, their locale, any identifying information is removed from the script. The scripts get read. So anyone has an opportunity. So we've had someone who was a writer on Love Boat. Some of you may be aware of Love Boat. I think he won. I can't remember. He's a prestigious of sorts writer, and then be a winner. And then equally, we've had a 15-year-old GCSE student from Scotland be a winner.
I wonder, John, would you be able to put some details in the chat? And maybe we can hear a bit more detail from you a little bit later on at some point about this competition, because I'm sure a lot of people would like to know about it, but we've only got 9 people here this evening. So if you'd like to put something in the chat, then at least they will have something when they get the recording. And,
in the chat on the Zoom chat here?
Yes, on this.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that would be good. And then perhaps we can talk with you separately about perhaps talking about that more fully, perhaps in an event of its own another time. Would you like to do that?
Grand. I waffled on for long enough, did I?
No, that's fine. It is now 3 minutes past 5, and I think everybody that we were going to expect is now here. So I would like to thank John for that very interesting sort of bulletin, because I'm sure a lot of people would be interested in that. I'm Amanda, and I'm Chair of London Drama. Chris is our administrator. Rosie is our hostess this evening, and Peter is our guest. So just to remind people that we are recording, and without further ado, I'm going to pass over to Rosie to introduce Peter and the play that we're going to be looking at this evening, The Visit. Thank you, Rosie.
Okay, thank you. Firstly, thank you everybody for coming. Bobby, nice to see you, and thank you those of you that are coming back. For anyone who hasn't come to book club before, the reason that we set this up in lockdown, but we also set this up because I know from personal experience, and anyone else here who's a drama teacher and you have a very high workload, you can get a little bit stuck on the same plays and just doing the same play year after year after year with your year 10 class and what have you. But actually, especially in recent events, there are lots of communities, and there's lots of voices in our classroom that we are going through things and that need representation and need platforms, which these tired old plays aren't necessarily providing. So it's really good that we can meet on Zoom and we can read new plays together for fun, but also for them as well, so that we're developing our repertoire. And John, very kindly, I was sat planning in the kitchen and he handed me this play because I was trying to think of a really good LGBTQ plus play for my new sixth form class that I'm going to have in September. And I just like fell in love with all these plays in it. I think they're amazing. And I'm not going to say any more. I'm going to hand over to Peter because he wrote them. So Peter, thank you so much for coming tonight. Over to you.
Yes, thank you for inviting me. It's truly an honor to be here with you. The book, 4 short plays, stage plays, includes the play The Interview, The Visit. This is a safe space, and a play whose title has changed a number of times. And in this collection, it's called Going Back. And but today's play is the Visit, and the reason I wrote The Visit as well as the other plays is to show the importance of communication, talking to one another, understanding, listening to understand what people are trying to say to you, because so often we listen to react and but not to understand. And it takes some measure of putting your ego aside and your own personal beliefs and just purely listening to what a person has to say to you, to understand where they're coming from. And that's so important. And so that's what is most important to me about writing these plays and presenting them. What else am I to mention?
Oh, The Visit. So we're reading The Visit tonight, which, you know, after 2 weeks of my brain slowly ticking over, I realised linked to The Interview, which I read first. What do you think, before we read The Visit, Peter, is there anything you'd like to say about it? I really loved reading it. Any introduction? Not that it needs one.
Well, let's see. I think what's important about The Visit is that being primarily a story about a father and a son and their disagreement with one another, that family is the cornerstone of our lives. And if we can't find a family in our blood relatives, then we find it in others, our fictive family, fictive. Yeah, I got the words mixed up. So that's what's important about this story, I believe, is that we will find family where we need to, and we all need family. We need that group of support, and so.
I think in lockdown, there's a lot of children who will be missing their drama family, and then you know what I mean. Like you definitely find in your subject the students that everybody else has a lot of trouble connecting with. They kind of make their peace in that creative space, and that's obviously been taken away from them for the last few months. So I think what's great about these plays is they're not just enjoyable, but they're actually needed as well. So thank you, Peter, for what you've told us so far. And then Amanda, if you want to screen share, I feel like I'm teaching drama again. This is really nice. I can hand out the parts.
Can everybody see that?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's grand. So so we've got the character Russell. So Russell, the visit impacts his character the most, I guess, and the visit happens because of his son. So he has a speaking part all the way through the play. So any keen beans to read for Russell? Oh, it's that awkward moment in your lesson, isn't it? Where you think, am I going to have to read for 10 characters?
I can read for Russell.
Thank you. Is that Michael?
Yeah, that's me.
Oh, grand. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you, Michael.
And then we've got Russell's spouse, Stephen. That's also, that part's got quite a bit of lines as well. But it's a nice short play, so don't worry, we're not going to be here for 4 hours. Anybody like to read for Stephen?
I'll be your partner.
Thanks, John. So yeah, Stephen is Russell's spouse, which is very significant in the context of the action. And then we've got Gabe, who is Russell and Stephen's son. He is the reporter in the play before, and he plays more of the role of a son in this play than reporter. But yeah, anybody to read for Gabe, please?
Okay. I'll read, Gabe.
Thank you, Chris. So Chris, okay, that's okay. You can read for Gerald, Chris. Gerald is the father who kicked Russell out because of Russell's sexuality. So you're going to be a point of contention tonight, which I think you'll be and then just a small, Julia is stage manager, and she doesn't have a lot of lines, but her lines are really important because they sort of interrupt things that are going on. I'll read for her. And then anyone want to read stage directions?
Yeah, I can do it if you like.
Amazing. Who's that?
Anna.
Oh, Anna, thank you very much, Anna. Okay, grand.
Do you want me to read the summary as well? Yes.
Yeah, that would be lovely, please. Thank you very much. Okay, so this is the visit, everyone. Enjoy. Thank you.
Okay, so let's begin. Okay, an actor who 20 years ago was kicked out of his home by his parents because of his sexuality is living a happy life with his husband and adopted son. When he receives a surprise visit from his estranged father less than an hour before curtain, on opening night of the play Hamlet. Settings: theatre dressing room. Production notes: this play takes place present day at a theatre in Akron, Ohio. This play is a follow-up to my earlier play, The Interview, but does not need to be coupled with said play to be understood. Playwright.
I'll skip that bit.
So, I can read it if you like. I mean,
or we can go to that at the end, Peter. We'll talk about you again at the end and how great you are. Yeah.
Okay. At Rise, theatre dressing room, approximately half an hour before showtime. Russell Harris sits at his dressing table and looks around the room. He is playing the title role in Hamlet, so this costume is that of Hamlet's first appearance. Stephen enters and Russell quickly pretends that he has been applying his makeup. Low whistle. Okay.
Sorry.
Hey, this is a nice dressing room.
Yeah, I know, it's pretty massive. I might tell them I'll be sharing the dressing rooms with the other performers for the rest of the run.
Okay. Why?
Is Gabe here?
Yeah, he's...
Gabe excitedly enters the room carrying his cell phone.
Dad, I just got the best interview with your director.
Gab notices the dressing room.
Wow, this dressing room's bitchin'.
Excuse me, what? Bitchin'? Since when do we talk like that?
Dad, I'm trying to bring groovy back, okay?
Stephen looks perplexed.
Anyway, Dad, the interview. You want me to tell you about it now or after the performance?
After the performance.
Okay.
You're going to be another Carl Bernstein, you know that?
From your lips to God's ears.
Julia knocks lightly on the door and stands at the threshold. She wears a headset.
So,
Yes, Julia?
there's someone here to see you. He didn't give his name. He's an older gentleman.
Your sugar daddy?
Shut up.
He's very polite, but he looks kind of, I don't know, kind of scared, nervous.
Russell is intrigued. He looks at Stephen, who shrugs.
Okay,
Who do you think it is?
I have no idea.
Gabe stands and looks at the door with anticipation. Gerald Harris enters and stands at the threshold. Russell stares at Gerald. Gerald removes his fedora and gives a cautious nod in greeting.
Russell.
Gerald.
How are you doing there, Gabe? It's good to see you again.
Russell and Stephen turn simultaneously to look at Gabe. Gabe looks like a kid who just got caught with his hand in the cookie jar. He puts on a nervous smile.
Hey, Grandpa. Good to see you too. Glad you could make it.
Gabe tries to avoid eye contact with Russell, who stares at him, befuddled. Russell turns back to Gerald.
Why are you here?
I came to see your performance. Gabe here has been keeping me up to date on your...
What does he mean, it's good to see you again?
Gerald looks at Russell with a shade of surprise.
You didn't know?
No, what?
Gabriel came to my house a few months back.
He what? You went to his house?
Yeah. I'm just going to use the restroom.
You're staying right there.
Yep, absolutely. That's what I meant.
I assumed you knew about...
No, I didn't know.
He wanted to convince me that I should come and see you.
Russell turns away from Gerald and tosses his makeup brush onto the table.
I thought that was what you wanted. To see your father again and, you know, have a real relationship with him. That's what you've always said.
It's more complicated than that, Gabe.
Russell looks at Gerald for a beat, shakes his head, then turns around and resumes applying his makeup. Gerald, Stephen and Gabe look at each other as if to say, what happens now? Stephen breaks the momentary silence.
Official introductions. I'm Stephen, Russell's spouse.
Gerald Harris, Russell's father. Oh, well, you already knew that.
It's a pleasure to meet you. Russ, how you doing?
I have to be on stage in less than 20 minutes.
Well, I'll just leave you to your preparations.
Gerald turns to exit. Russell throws his makeup brush down again.
Are you serious right now? I mean, really, Dad, are you serious?
Gerald stands uncertain.
20 years. I haven't seen you in 20 years because you and Mom kicked me out of the house because you couldn't accept the fact that I was gay.
We shouldn't bring up the past.
We shouldn't bring up the past? The past is what brought us here. I was 15, Dad. Do you understand that? Do you understand how messed up that is? I was scared and I was alone. After 20 years, you just appear out of nowhere and want me to what? To forgive you for throwing me out into the streets? And you want to know something? Ever since that day, no matter who came into my life, no matter how wonderful they were, there was always this empty, lonely place in me that I could never fill. Do you understand that?
I do. I mean, I'm trying to.
Why did you have to come here? Why tonight? Why now? This is opening night, for God's sake.
Russell tries to regain his calm. He shuts his eyes and breathes deeply.
Dad,
I have a show to do.
don't mess this up. It's like what you and Dad have always told me. The past isn't happening. It's just a memory. The future isn't real. It's just a dream of what might be. But it's the now.
The present moment.
Right, yeah. It's the present moment that matters. It's the only thing that's real. I don't really know what I'm trying to say, but I guess you're not 15 anymore. Dad and Grandpa, you don't feel the same way you did 20 years ago. Don't... Just keep the past in the past, okay? And make the present moment the best it can be, because it's all that we have.
The adults in the room look at Gabe. They are equally stunned and proud. Gabe pulls a small sheet of paper out of his pocket.
Yeah, I actually wrote that down before we came here. I was hoping I'd get a chance to use it.
Can't help but believe that anything is possible, can you?
That's what you taught me.
Okay, come on, young Dalai Lama. We'd better get to our seats.
Stephen and Gabe start to exit. Stephen stops at Gerald.
It was good to meet you, Mr. Harris. Hope to see you again soon.
The same to you, son.
Stephen and Gabe exit.
So you're playing Hamlet.
Yes.
Wasn't he a white dude?
Russell puts his head in his hand.
No, I'm just asking because when I saw the poster out front with your face underneath the title Hamlet, I got a little confused.
It's called non-traditional casting.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think I saw something about that on PBS some time ago. But you don't think the audience is going to get all bent out of shape like they did when Samuel Jackson played, what's his name? Nick Fury in those comic book movies, do you?
Russell shakes his head, no, and turns to look aimlessly at his makeup table.
Dad, look, I just need to hold on to this anger that I feel. I need to hate you.
I know that feeling. You think you need to hold on to it as long as you can, but you have to let it go. Let it go, son, like I did. You've grown to be a good man, Russ. I see now that you are always a good man. You have a good family, a good what do you call it?
Spouse.
A good spouse and a good son. I'm just sorry it took me 20 years to get to this point, but I made it, and I'm sure you'll find your way too.
Gerald gives Russell a single, sincere pat on the back. Then he turns and exits.
See you on the stage, son. Knock 'em dead, break a bone, or whatever it is they say.
15 minutes, everyone! Oh, sorry. I forgot you were doing it. I thought I'd be Rosie. I was getting too involved.
I've got 3 lines. Let me have them. 15 minutes, everyone. 15 minutes.
Julia knocks on the door and stands at the threshold.
Hey, Hamlet. 15 minutes before you're reunited with your long-lost father. Are you ready?
Lights fade. End of play.
Wow.
Ah, that was good. Yeah.
I really, really love that play. John won't be invited back to drama club.
That was the aim.
I don't know, I thought it might be nice if we all said something we liked about it, and maybe a question that we have for Peter while we've got him here. What we normally do, Peter, at the end of the play is just talk quite freely, but it's just such an opportunity. The playwright that obviously wrote the play is here. It's a great opportunity for us to have a dialogue with you about it. I think what I really love about it is how the best advice comes from the youngest character, because he's just got that clarity of vision, and he hasn't had as long as his dad for resentment to build up, because actually resentment can be as big a hurdle to jump over as prejudice can, and it's very hard work to resent people as well. And I think, I can't remember the line, but the line that he says in the middle of the play about the past and the future.
So all we really have is the present moment. That's the only thing that's real. Yeah.
It's quite good advice.
It's a great line. That's a great line. Very great line.
I think my question to you, Peter, would be, I'll be working with this play with a class of 6 students, all with very different cultural, religious backgrounds, and also none of them grew up in London. Most of them joined the school, I think, halfway through Key Stage 3, one from Goa, one from Iran, Anna from Poland. So they're from very different places, but also as well they're 17 and 16, so they're starting to also kind of make up their own mind about things. So any advice that you would have on creating quite a safe space, or just safely approaching the text and the issues it brings up? Not issues it brings up, that sounds quite negative. The conversations it
in creating a safe space. Yeah, I feel that it's what's essential is that they do feel comfortable expressing what's being expressed in the play, because it may tap into feelings that they have, and struggles that they may be going through in different forms. So I guess roughly my advice is for them to let them know that it is indeed a safe space for them to explore these feelings and these thoughts and these ideas and concepts, and that they will be respected in what their feelings are. And yeah, I hope that answers your question.
No, it really does. It really, really does. Because it's something that came up actually in community. We were talking about prejudice, and we were talking about when you challenge prejudice, you kind of think that you've got to look for it in other people, but sometimes it can be in yourself. And with this play, it could be very liberating for a student to look at, but also it could be really difficult because they're having to go against a grain that they've been channeled into their whole lives. And I think you mention in the foreword in the play, you talk about opening dialogue and about how actually getting conversations initiated is really important. So maybe just starting by talking.
Yeah.
Sometimes, like as drama teachers, we want everything to be really creative and exciting, and actually sometimes simplicity is the best platform for the exciting stuff to sort itself out.
Right. Yeah, and I think that's exactly right, to start by just talking. And I think that's what I was alluding to when I said that they should be allowed to know that they can speak freely, and just by starting a conversation with them, a real life conversation, that can allow them to begin to open those doors and feel comfortable going into that room. And and expressing themselves.
I've got lots of questions. I'm not going to ask them because I'll just talk constantly.
Well, if I can say, I love this play. And one of the things I really liked about it, it would have been so easy for you to tie this play up with a nice happy ending where everybody's hugging and they all, you know, oh, I'm so sorry, me too. But you left it open.
Yeah.
And left it open for the audience to really think about what's going to happen, where do they go? But they've opened up, each character has opened up. I mean, there's a lot of emotion in this piece. And I thought that was beautiful and I'm so happy there was no, let's put a button on this, let's put a happy ending. I just thought that was brilliant. And my question was, you said that this is tied to the interview?
Yes.
Yeah.
How are they, having not read it, how are they tied? What is the connection?
The interview is the first story in this two-story piece, and it features Gabe. He travels a long distance from his town to the town where his grandfather Gerald lives, and he goes there with the under the guise of being a reporter. He is a reporter for his school newspaper, but he doesn't tell his grandfather that he is his grandson. He comes there just as a reporter who's going to ask questions about hot button issues that are going around the dialogue of today, such as LGBTQ clubs in schools and some other issues, but he's really there to tell his grandfather that his son Russell has always felt an empty place in his life and has always wanted to meet his father, and he's there to try to convince his grandfather to go and visit Gabe's family, his two dads and himself, and bring reconciliation to their relationship. And so that's how it connects.
Okay, so it's what's alluded in, I mean, he talks about that in this play.
Right.
Another quick question. Who publishes this?
This is self-published through Amazon.com.
Okay.
And so it's available there on Amazon. And I have two other plays, Monster and About Michael, which are available through Lazy Bee Scripts.
Looked at those, yeah. What's another thing that's actually really great about these, Peter, is when, just from a teaching point of view, you know, when they have unit 2 or component 3, it's called, depending on the exam board. But anyway, you put the students in groups and you give them a play that suits the sort of children that are in that group, which is great. And they get really close to the group they're working in, but you do lose that nice feeling of a big class because everybody's working on different pockets of material and they can be very different plays to each other. But if you had 4 groups and you gave each of them one of these plays, there would still be that nice feeling of collaboration across the groups, which you don't always get when you're teaching that component. So just from an organisational and a collaborative point of view, it's really nice to have a collection of plays where there's a narrative across the texts. I really liked that. Like I said, I worked it out after 2 weeks, but I worked it out.
What I liked about the play is the unusual setting.
Keep going.
Strangely enough, in a dressing room before he's about to go on and be the key part in one of the biggest dramas there is going. An hour before he goes on, it's quite a tight schedule he's got there that he knows he's got to get out within an hour. So you've got this. That there's this pressure on Russell in this situation because he's trying to get himself together before a huge venture out on the stage. And I like that sort of sense of pressure, of the tension, where some of these conversations, which are only in terms of words, there are very few words, but there's so much information behind them to do with trying to restore relationships in a very, like being on a crowded train station or something and snatching out all your words and it doesn't come out right somehow. And but there's a whole sense of how people behave when they want to say something and they've not got very much time to say it in. That's something that struck me very much as something.
I think
much emotion in it as well, because you could have really emotionally charged and had loads of screaming matches in that, and I quite liked that you allowed for quiet moments.
That's what I was going to say, is that although it's quite a tense play, it's got room to breathe. And I was only thinking earlier today that, you know, you pick up a play and you tend to thunder kids through it at a rate of knots, asking them questions, hoping that they'll pick up the themes, and if not, finding contrived ways of asking them questions so that they do. And actually, there's a terms work in that play. There's some beautiful potential in there. And as Chris was saying, the language is actually very simple, but it's absolutely bursting with meanings, which are there for the mining and for the discovering. You've got the whole parallels with Hamlet, if they want to find out about Hamlet, as you were talking about the tension of the play, almost within the play. Lots to explore there in terms of ironies. I just like the way that you kept referring to the makeup brush being put down, and I'm itching to get my hands on a sixth form group and say, do the monologue in the mirror as you're putting your makeup on, and keep getting it wrong and taking it off again. There's such a lot that can be mined in terms of subtext and underlying monologues there as well. And you've got this young son who can't understand what the big deal's about. And it was that lovely line from the father that it's taken me 20 years, but I have actually been working on this. And what you were saying earlier, Rosie, about never really knowing what's going on in other people's lives. What were those 20 years like for him? What plays are there in that could be done in response as annexes to this play? You've got a terms work there easily.
In the interview, the dad's so different, because in this play, he's other than that bit where Russell snaps, the dad doesn't actually his back's not really against the wall. He's actually stepped forward, whereas Gabe is very like guns are blazing in the interview and asking him all of those questions because he wants to trigger homophobia and gets stuff to write about. And actually, like, when the dad's just given that breathing space in between the two plays, and then when he gets to make the decision to step forward, you see a lot of healing has taken place. And yeah, like when we think about getting rid of things like racism, homophobia, you know, it's very challenge this, but actually, I don't know.
It reminds me of something that a trans friend of mine said when her father was struggling to come to terms with what has just been presented to him. And she said, it's taken me 20 years to come to terms with myself. I can't expect my father to do it in 5 minutes. And it was that generosity of spirit and real deep reflection, and the spirituality in this play as well, that might not be obvious to begin with, but it's underneath, pulsing there, isn't there, in those sorts of lines that from the father, that actually opens up big stories that don't get told here but have clearly happened. So yeah,
I have a question about the African Americanness of the situation, whether this is an issue. He gets thrown out of his household from, I I don't know whether the mother is African American as well, but certainly, is this an issue for an African American community in particular, or an American issue in particular, or?
I think it's all of the above. I wanted to write it from, because I am African American, from that viewpoint and that experience, and also address it as just a universal experience for anyone, whether they're from America or the UK or wherever. That it's an issue that lands on everyone's table. And so that was my intention behind that. And you had mentioned earlier that the pressure of trying to get these relationships resolved in a short amount of time under the pressure of a play that has to be presented, that Russell will be in. The reason I created that structure is because I found that in life, oftentimes the most important moments happen in layers, where when you are experiencing a problem, often another situation comes into play, and then another, and then you've got all these things that you're trying to wrestle with at the same time. So that was a reflection of life that I was showing there.
Yeah, on that, I really sort of, sorry, John.
Go on, Michael.
I thanks. I like that there are multiple layers. I mean, there's the obvious layer, which is the sort of the situation that's happening in front of us. But then it also brings in, at some point they mention the colorblind casting of Hamlet, which is a small moment which you could really mine down into as well. And then, as Amanda already said, the parallel between Hamlet and what's happening here, which is then, it's potentially not the same situation, but then we're also talking about sort of father figures leaving for a whole host of reasons, which is something that a lot of other students could connect to for other reasons other than LGBT. And also, I really like that the play is so short, because it really crystallizes this moment, and it's very clear what's going on. And I can really see in a classroom that in a double period, for instance, you could actually run the whole play like 2 or 3 times as a group, which often you don't really get the chance to do. You're only sort of looking at small scenes, and then you can kind of sometimes lose the journey of a play. You can lose the whole progression of a plot where there's a pre-existing situation, something happens, and then we're in a new situation. I mean, if you're reading a Chekhov play, you would fill a whole 2 hours just to get that whole arc. Whereas with this, you could see that whole arc in 15 minutes, which then you could, I'm thinking off the top of my head that you could just explore it in different ways. So there's the running clock that he needs to be on stage in 20 minutes. So you could put a big timer up on the PowerPoint, and then it's ticking down, and it really sort of pushes the tension of the scene, and then explore it in a different way. And you could do all of that within one lesson just because of the shortness and the clarity of the play. And it's also, there's nothing to get confused about for students. It is clear, it is easy to understand, and I think that's also a great plus.
Yeah.
Oh no, John was going to say something before. Sorry, go on, John.
It was like what Bobby said there about it not all tying up at the end. I was thinking about Russell's journey is really tough. Oh, I'm about to go on, about to do a performance of Hamlet. Oh, good. Here's my son. Give me support. Oh, here we go. Here's my husband. Give me some support. And then, oh my God, here's all of this history suddenly dumped in front of me. Now my son is advising me just to let go of it and live in the present and not in the past. Now my dad, with all of that baggage, is going, yeah, you know, you let go of all this hate, just like I did, because I hated you when I kicked you out, and I've just let go of it with that. And then he gives him a little pat on the back. Right, have a great show, son. You'd be an absolute wreck. And then you got to go on and perform Hamlet.
Opening night.
Terrifying, right? That's quite a journey for an actor for playing Russell.
Right.
He must be in.
It could be a gift as well. I mean,
he must be. I mean, not only that, taking advice from your son, from someone much younger than you that doesn't know the full story, and saying, "Come on, move on," which is another tie-in with the time. Come on, move on now. I can't even unpack this with you, son, right now. What's going on?
Right. That was one of the things.
I think John relates probably to Russell's character and the difficulty of that moment particularly well. It's almost comical how at the end it's like, right, are you ready to go on stage now? Of course he's not. He needs about 3 weeks of therapy just to probably leave.
Right.
Yeah. And his
that
pat on the back is just so patronising. I'd want to, don't touch me, Dad. What are you doing?
That was one of the things that I wanted to give to the actor, whoever plays Russell, was exactly what you were saying, John, is that all of these, the layers that I was talking about that happen in life, at the same time, and he's got to deal with this. And so that's what I hoped you brought out, exactly what I hoped an actor who was studying the part of Russell would experience, is the fact that all of this is coming at him all at the wrong time, and he's got to try to manage it and get on stage in just 5 minutes. And so, for an actor, I hoped that would be a fun place to explore and
But that's just like Hamlet himself in the play, isn't it?
Yeah.
Events have taken a sudden turn, and he's sort of, what's going on, And then his dad turns up as a ghost and throws a spanner in the works.
All I could do is think at the end was an acting teacher that I once had. He would have been screaming at the end of this, "Use it! Use it!"
Yeah, I was thinking the same. I was thinking, I hope he's a method actor, because then this is going to be the greatest performance he's ever done.
It was quite interesting, that line that jumped out to me. I don't know if it jumped out to other people, about, I need this anger. I need to hate you. Is it? He says, I need to be angry with you.
Yes, that's right,
And
yeah.
it's like he's had to build a new life, which is full of love and positive things. And he's had to reject his father, and there's anger there, and they're two separate worlds, and he's chosen to live in this one. And in a funny kind of way, the anger from one has fueled and enabled the other. So if he lets go of his anger, he's running the risk of imploding, isn't he? It's a very complex journey, that bit.
I think
because if he doesn't, it means he's got to sort of open up his positive world to include his father, and that's massive. So
I read that he needed that anger to get out on stage and play the part.
Yeah.
I thought, at last I got some anger. I can get out there now and knock him dead. I think I think there is, at one level, there is this need for him, having been battered like that, to have impelling drive to actually do his job, as he's got to do, out there as an actor.
Anger can be a very positive motivating force, which is what he's managed to channel to get thus far. So it's then very, very difficult to let that go, because that's been your fuel all that time, hasn't it? So I think there's a lot on mental health issues here, and there's a lot on well-being. This actually, in terms of all the current issues that are being explored in schools at the moment, that this actually, in a very gentle way in some ways, because as you said, it's a very simple play in lots of ways and very short, but it actually raises, in a very interesting context, some really deep, interesting and urgent issues.
His anger, oftentimes, sometimes we we find that we need anger to define us or define our situation. Sometimes it can become a comfort zone in a weird way, to know that I feel angry, I feel this anger towards this person. It makes sense. It makes everything else make sense. And it gives you a focus point. So for that reason and other reasons, Russell says that he needs that anger, needs to hate him. It's very complicated, but
There's a very important discussion to be had there as well, Ben, with students about like, what do we do with things that we can't control, events that happen to us that are beyond us, and making the best out of those things rather than allowing them to define us. And it's, as Amanda said, it becomes about mental health and trauma as well.
right.
So I wonder if you want to talk about, if, I don't know, like if you were writing anything in lockdown, or is there anything you're working on at the moment, or anything else that you've written that you think would be really good for us to read in book club. So this is our 4th book club, and I've read more plays since starting book club than I have in probably the last 2 years. So it is really nice to read with all of you. I find reading quite difficult, but this makes it very enjoyable for me. So I want to kind of run with that while I can. So yeah, is there anything else you're working on, or anything you wrote in lockdown?
Yeah, I've written a few things in lockdown. One of which is a play, well, a monologue and a 10-minute 2-person play. The monologue is called Another Kind of Cancer, and the 2-person play is called You People. And they were written I was inspired to write them from a Richard Zink, who runs the Equality Productions in Cincinnati theater group. He put out a call for Black Lives Matter plays and monologues. And so I came up with Another Kind of Cancer and You People. And so I wrote those 2, and I wrote another play called See Invisible. And it's, I won't say what it's about. It's more something that you should enter into when you read it. But it deals with 2 people who have opposing views of life, and a shocking revelation of what one person, how he attacks life, literally. And so I've written that, and I can't think of anything. I know I've written a couple of other things, but I can't think of them right now.
What's great as well is there for, I mean, there's so much that's brilliant about them, but just from a kind of boring logistical point of view, they're short and they're for small groups, which in context of the COVID-19 secondary school drama studio, John's nodding, you get this as well, because you work a lot in schools and with young people. That's going to work really well. And we want to be able to keep things practical. We don't want schools to come into our classrooms and go, this doesn't look safe. You need to be in an English room now, and drama's a written subject. Please, God, no. So yeah, that's really fantastic. I'm so glad I came across you, and I think your work is amazing. And my last question would be just out of interest to you and John, because you both must read a lot of plays and a lot of scripts that are sent in. Are there any kind of trends? Like, is there anything that you've noticed people are writing a lot about at the moment? Or do you just get all sorts?
You know, the only thing that brings to mind now was 2017. There were a lot of plays about war. Let me think. Peter, come on. What can you think? What have been the trends over the last couple of years?
That's a very good question, and
there were a few existential ones, weren't there?
Yeah.
lots of for like kind of waiting for Godot type plays.
Yeah, there
and
was one about
2019 was it, or 2018? There was lots of plays set in the future. I feel.
yeah.
It went
Yeah.
future and then but what was last year like? I don't recall. I don't think
You
there's
get
anything.
trends a lot, like when you get like a big batch of plays from, and the nice thing is with your competition, it's anybody, right? Anybody can, yeah. So do you often get trends, or do you have years when you get a real mixture?
Yeah, I think not last year, but the year before last, as I think John alluded to, there were a lot of science fiction future plays where it addressed the issue of technology and humanity, and technology surpassing humanity. So there was that.
Because I guess as a playwright, your stimulus is what you're surrounded by, isn't it? So
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're right, Peter. There was one where it was the idea of gaming. I think it was kind of inspired by the Pokemon game, where you could capture Pokemon whilst you walk around with your camera in real life time. And a young girl was playing a similar game and ended up, as part of her quest, getting locked up and having to put this tag on, and got quite dark. Another of the plays was looking at the advances of exoskeletons, and where that would take the people who decided to and who was chosen to have an exoskeleton, and those that refused or were then left behind, whilst your brain would advance in some way. But the year just gone, it was a real mixed bag. I mean, lots of plays I say lots. There are a fair few plays about Trump, or certainly with Trump in the title as well. Kind of be expected. But it was totally mixed. Totally mixed this year just gone.
Does anyone else? I'm just keeping an eye on the time. Does anyone else have any questions or anything at all to share with Peter, or about the play, or maybe about what you'd like to read next time? No?
One at a time.
I'm just
One at a
wondering.
one at a time.
Have you read Foxcatcher? One of the two.
No.
Oh, is that about the wrestlers?
No, that's I think that's a TV show or something. No, this is it's from a British playwright, I believe, a lady, and I read it recently, and it's very well received. I think it's called Foxfinder, and it's kind of dystopian. But when I read it, I thought it was very, very interesting for kids. It's it's quite different. I've never read something quite like it. And I have a PDF version of it as well, if you need that.
Yeah, maybe we could read that one next time. I like the sound of it.
How long is it?
It is a bit longer though. I'm not sure you could read it in an hour.
If you sent me the PDF, we could, or if you wanted to, Michael, we could just pick some extracts, which is what we've done before in the past. This is what's great. Another of the million things, Peter, that's great about your plays. Like we've already said, it is the length, and you can just sink your teeth into it and you can finish it in a decent amount of time. But yeah, we can still do longer plays and just pick extracts from them. So yeah, we could do that one. Definitely do that one next time.
That would be lovely. Thank you, Michael.
Nice.
I'll hand back to you, Amanda. Just a big thank you, everybody. Massive thank you, Peter, as well.
Thank you. Thank you very much for inviting me. It's been an honor and a joy.
It's been a lovely evening. Thank you very much indeed. I'm going to stop recording now.